Sarais González was a young woman full of dreams who decided to take a trip to meet a friend. But just a few days later, her family was left with no answers. What seemed like a simple disappearance turned into one of the most shocking crimes in Chile in 2025. What really happened to Sarais? How did the police respond to the case? And why did the delay in the investigation spark so much outrage? Today, we're going to dive into all the details of this terrifying case. If you're into real crime videos, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss any updates. Sarais Elena González Bracho, a 23-year-old Venezuelan, lived in Chile with her family in the Maipú neighborhood of Santiago. Like many immigrants, she was looking for better opportunities in the country and had a peaceful life with her relatives. At the end of February 2025, Sarais decided to travel to Temuco, a city in southern Chile. Her destination was the home of Jason Enrique Barrios Urdaneta, a 25-year-old Venezuelan acquaintance. At first, her family didn't see any issues with the trip, since Sarais seemed excited about the meetup. However, Jason had a troubling history. He had previously been involved in an abusive relationship with Angeles Molero, another Venezuelan immigrant, who had reported violent episodes. Additionally, Jason was known for his involvement with drugs and aggressive behavior. Despite this, Sarais went ahead with her plans, not showing any fear. She believed Jason was just a friend, and that her stay in Temuco would be brief. Unfortunately, this trip would mark the beginning of one of the most shocking cases of the IDT year. On February 21st, Sarais took a bus to Temuco and kept in touch with her family during the journey. The following day, February 22nd, she sent her location and a photo with Jason, confirming that she had arrived safely. That was her last contact with her relatives. After that, her messages began to go unanswered. Her sudden disappearance worried her family, who immediately tried every means to find her. Sarais's last activity on social media was recorded on February 20th, even before her trip. Jason, on the other hand, remained active online until February 23rd. In an ironic post, he wrote that he was heading to the Bahamas with Sarais, but gave no further details. This comment raised suspicions since the young woman had stopped responding to anyone. The uncertainty about her whereabouts grew, and her family began to fear the worst. With no news, Sarais's family decided to act quickly. They reached out to contacts in Temuco and asked for help in searching for her. However, no one seemed to know where she was. On February 26th, her sister and cousin traveled to Temuco to start searching on their own. They gathered information, asked about Sarais in various places, and finally filed a police report with the Chilean authorities. What seemed like a simple disappearance quickly turned into a brutal crime. The concern of Sarais's family grew with each passing hour without answers. After the last contact on February 22nd, her sister repeatedly tried calling her, but the calls went unanswered. Messages were sent through social media and messaging apps, but everything was ignored. The absence of any sign of life increased their anxiety because it was not like Sarais to disappear without notice. The uncertainty about her whereabouts began to take over the family. Sarais's sister and cousin made the difficult decision to travel to Temuco on February 26th. They knew that the longer it took, the lower the chances of finding her alive. Upon arriving in the city, they searched for information about Jason and tried to contact him, but had no luck. The only option was to file a police report with the Chilean authorities, the Carabineros. They hoped the authorities would act quickly. To locate Sarais, the Chilean police made 2 visits to Jason's apartment, where Sarais was supposedly staying. However, the officers did not enter the property. They claimed that without a court order, they couldn't force the door open. This detail enraged the family, as they believed a quick action could have prevented a tragic outcome. With no other option, the relatives continued trying to find Sarais on their own. In the following days, Sarais' sister kept pushing the police for more effective measures. Despite her efforts, the authorities maintained their bureaucratic stance. Meanwhile, Jason remained missing, not responding to messages or offering any explanation about the young woman's whereabouts. The anxiety grew day by day, and the only certainty for the family was that something was terribly wrong. With no answers, Sarais' sister decided to take matters into her own hands. On February 28th, she went to the building where Jason lived and tried to reach out to the neighbors. Desperate, she climbed the building to his apartment window and smelled a strong odor coming from inside. What she found in that apartment would be a shocking and terrifying scene that would completely change the course of the investigation. Looking through the window, Sarais' sister saw a horrifying sight. The apartment was swarming with flies, and the smell was unbearable. Something was terribly wrong inside. In a state of panic, she recorded a video of the moment and began screaming for help. Within minutes, neighbors called the police, who, this time, had no choice but to break the door down and enter the apartment. Inside the apartment, the police found a scene of horror. Sarais' body was in an advanced state of decomposition, lying in the middle of the living room. There were bloodstains and clear signs of violence. The young woman had been brutally murdered, and the evidence suggested that the crime had taken place days before the discovery. The confirmation of her death devastated her family, who had still held on to hope that she might be alive. The preliminary examination revealed that Sarais had suffered multiple stab wounds. However, it was still necessary to determine the exact date of the crime to better understand the timeline of events. Since Jason had disappeared, he quickly became the prime suspect in the murder. However, a new discovery added more mystery to the case. Jason had already been arrested on February 25th. The fact that Jason was in custody before the discovery of Sarais' body raised a crucial question. Could he have committed the crime before being arrested? Or was there someone else involved? The possibility of a second suspect arose, as different weapons had been used in the crime. Now, the investigation needed to answer who killed Sarais, when it happened, and whether Jason was the only one responsible. When the police began searching for Jason, they made an unexpected discovery. He had already been arrested on February 25th, accused of a completely different crime. On the 24th, he had broken into a house, brutally attacked a man, and tried to set the place on fire. The victim lost an eye due to the severity of the injuries, and Jason was arrested the following day. Jason's arrest before the discovery of Sarais' body raised more questions than answers. If he was already in custody, when exactly did the murder happen? Was it possible that he had committed the crime before being arrested, but the forensics needed to determine the exact time of Sarais' death? If not, the investigation would need to consider the possibility of another suspect. The Chilean police began a detailed analysis of the evidence found in Jason's apartment. The crime scene showed a brutal attack and indicated that Sarais had suffered a violent death. However, the lack of concrete information about the exact sequence of events made the case even more complex. Meanwhile, Jason was formally charged with home invasion, aggravated assault, and attempted arson. However, he had not yet been charged with the murder of Sarais. The investigator's job was now to gather all possible evidence to ensure that the person responsible for this crime would be brought to justice. The case of Sarais González caused a huge stir, especially within the Venezuelan community in Chile. Many immigrants took to social media to express their outrage, highlighting the vulnerability of migrant women and the slow response from the authorities. Sarais' brutal murder wasn't just an isolated crime, but a reflection of the insecurity that many women face. For the family, in addition to the pain of their loss, there was also anger at the police's delay in taking action. The Chilean carabineros were heavily criticized for how they handled Sarais' disappearance. The victim's sister stated that if the police had acted sooner, Sarais might have been found alive. The delay in obtaining a court order to enter Jason's apartment was seen as a serious mistake. Under public pressure, the authorities admitted that they could have requested the search earlier, which might have prevented the late discovery of her body. Another problem the family faced was the financial difficulty of covering the funeral, costs, and transporting the body back to Venezuela. The process was expensive and bureaucratic, making the situation even harder for Sarais' relatives. To raise funds, the family organized social media campaigns and received help from friends and strangers moved by the case. The community's support was crucial during this painful time. On social media, many shared Sarais' story with calls for justice. However, there were also rumors and false information circulating, which concerned the victim's sister. She appealed for only confirmed facts to be shared, urging people to avoid speculations that could harm the investigation. According to her, the most important thing was to ensure the case wasn't forgotten and that the responsible person would be properly punished. Sarais' death became a symbol of the fragility of migrant women's safety in Chile. Beyond the EUA violence of the crime, the police negligence was a factor that angered many. In response to the public outcry, human rights organizations began pressuring the authorities to treat cases like this with more urgency. Sarais' family continues to fight for justice and hopes that her case will serve as a warning so that no other woman faces the same tragic fate. So far, Jason has not been formally charged with Sarais González's murder, but he remains the primary suspect. Chilean authorities are still investigating the case to gather enough evidence to confirm his involvement. The forensic examination is looking into details of the body and evidence found in the apartment to determine the exact date of the murder. This is crucial to clarify whether Jason committed the crime before his arrest or if there could be another accomplice involved. The possibility of another participant in the crime has not been ruled out, as the crime scene suggested the use of different bladed weapons. If it is confirmed that Jason was already in custody when Sarais was murdered, the investigation will take a completely different direction. Witnesses and security camera footage from the area are also being reviewed to check for signs of other people entering or leaving the apartment during the critical period. Every detail could be crucial in solving the case. In addition to the criminal investigation, Sarais' case sparked important debates about safety and police response to missing persons cases. Many criticisms were aimed at the carabineros, who, according to the family, did not act quickly enough. If they had entered the apartment sooner, Sarais might have been found alive, or at least the crime could have been discovered earlier. This issue reinforces the need for changes in protocols for similar cases. Sarais' family continues to fight to ensure the case doesn't fade into obscurity. They want Jason and anyone else involved to be held accountable for the crime. They also aim to prevent other women from going through the same tragedy. The pain of the loss is still immense, but the fight for justice has become the main goal for the victims' relatives and friends. The case has become a warning symbol about the dangers faced by migrant women and the lack of proper protection. The outcome of this crime still depends on the conclusion of the investigation, but public pressure has been essential in keeping the case in the spotlight. While the authorities work to clarify all the details, Sarais' family continues to ask for support and for the story to be shared. If you want to stay updated on this case, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We'll keep following this until justice is served. See you in the next video.